Well, welcome back. This is our fourth episode of the Business of Law series, where we are talking to attorneys who've made the transition from practicing law to running a law firm and managing the business side as well as their practice. And today we have Simone Fulmer Gaus, who's from Fulmer Sill, based in Oklahoma City. Very excited to talk to you today, Simone. I think there are so many things that you have really thought about and mastered that would be incredibly beneficial for all of us to hear. So I'm extremely excited about this conversation. Just to get us started, would you do a little introduction? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm and what you do there.
Of course. And first, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. We are a personal injury and mass tort firm in Oklahoma City. We've been in business for 11 years, and we are a fairly lean team. I am very proud of that. You know, a lot of people are focused on the numbers, and I'm more focused on what can we do to our very best, and we do it better having a smaller team. So I think the entire firm is less than 20, and yeah, we like it that way. So
Small but mighty.
yeah, exactly. We're very focused, and it works that way for us.
That's
So
great.
I started as a lawyer in 1996, so I've been doing this almost 30 years now. The first year and a half, I was actually in-house counsel for an insurance company. And that moved from that to a firm that is what you would traditionally call an insurance defense firm. But I always worked on plaintiff cases. I have sued insurance companies most of my career, insurance bad faith. I stayed with that firm for 17 years. I was doing complex litigation. We were doing huge class actions. We were doing anything that has to do with claims practices in insurance companies. And honestly, during my 40s, and I think a lot of people do this, you start to wonder, is this really what I intended to do? Is this really what I wanted to do? And it took me a little while, and I realized that I thought the practice of law could be more people focused than it is. We can get so wrapped up in the back and forth with opposing counsel, with worrying about what the judge is going to do, with, you know, so much of winning the game, that I think we lose sight of, one, we represent human beings with real lives, and two, the people working for us are human beings with real lives. And I just thought that there had to be a better way. I left a very wonderful practice with, you know, it was very lucrative, but I wanted to try out something different. And so that's why I started my firm. I wanted to see if there was a different way of doing it.
And I think from what I understand you have, but I'm sure there were
Yeah.
a lot of lessons along the way. You know, when you first made that transition, what do you think surprised you the most about being in the
Uh,
position of getting to make the decisions of how things are run?
yeah, the real calls. I think the thing that surprised me the most, it's you can be the very best lawyer in the room. That doesn't make you a fantastic business owner. And I don't know, and I know a lot of law firm owners say this, you know, we're not taught in law school how to manage a business, and we're not. Um, you know, that part was a little surprising. You know, the traditional law firm model, and what I mean when I say that is where, you know, think the triangle where, you know, there's a guy up at the top telling the next level of people what to do, telling the next level of people what to do. You know, that is a very bottlenecking kind of workflow. It's a bottlenecking way of even running a law firm. And I learned just from, wow, I read so many business books. I read so many Harvard Business Review articles. And we figured out a way to kind of put it so that all that responsibility, not just responsibility, but all the answers to everything being at the top of that triangle. And I like to say we flattened it out.
Mm.
And when we flattened it out, it meant that as the law firm owner, I'm not the one answering all the questions anymore. The questions have already been answered in the way that we have structured the firm. Um, so that surprised me. It really did. That traditional way of running a law firm, which I don't think is serving anyone well, could actually change and look different and still be successful. I believed it, but that it actually worked. I
Yeah.
think that life throws some really cool surprises. There's a reason I had that in my gut that it could be different. I was right. But yeah, it was a sweet surprise along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I know you have a very well-defined and
Hmm.
well-documented sort of philosophy around how to run a law firm based on your firm as the archetype, which I think is
Yeah.
really exciting because honestly, having spoken to so many different law firm partners and lawyers over the years, um, there there have not been a lot of people who have been as intentional and as thoughtful and thought as philosophically about what they're doing as you have. And so I'm really excited to dive further into some of those particulars with you. I would love to know, you referenced, I know you do a lot of research and a lot of reading, and you're borrowing
Yeah.
from other business types and business strategies and things like that. Do you have some resources or books or authors or people that come to top of mind for you that you think have been very influential in helping you set up your approach to running a law firm?
Absolutely. The first book that I read, because I was never even thinking about owning a business, I just didn't. It's just, this epiphany hits, I'm going to do my own. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Um, Everybody must read that book because at the end of the day, it's our fuel. Why we do what we do is our fuel. And when we lose sight of that, I think um, that's when the chaos comes in. That's when those things take over where we are. Um, Second book, highly recommend. In fact, we've not mentioned my book, but in my book, I talk about Mike Michalowicz's Profit First. I've read all of Mike Michalowicz's stuff at this point. Profit First, though, it gave me a foundational way to think about money
Mm.
and rather than the traditional thing, which is, you lower expenses so that you can make money at the end of the day, he kind of throws that in order, he swaps it, and he says, you take profit out first, and then you cover expenses. So it's kind of a different way of thinking, but I think because it was so disruptive, it appealed to me because it was different, and I kind of liked that. I love every Brené Brown. Dare to Lead is a fantastic book, particularly because I was coming into this with the thought about the people who form the organization. And she is so in tune with not only emotions, but just human accountability, human empathy with one another. So I loved that book. And then I, other than just reading specific books, I will say that I did a deep dive into organizations who uh, seem to be really in the forefront on this idea of the organization being about the people in it. So I studied Google and the way they had stuff set up. I studied Zappos. Zappos is fantastic if you've ever read it, or ever read about how they set stuff up. But these were just ideas, and you get all these ideas, and then you start letting them percolate, and then they start to, let's try that out. And because I started from scratch, I didn't have anyone to stop me, and I recognize that not every law firm owner has that. A lot of law firm owners are partners with other people, and I didn't have anyone stopping me. So I was really able to experiment. And that's how all of these variant sources started to distill into what I ultimately came up with and the way we run our firm now.
That's great. I love all of that. I think it's so important to have the perspective of other industries and other businesses. And I think, especially in law, it can be so easy to think that, well, we're practicing law and no one else can really understand this. And so it's very unique and we can't apply other business principles. But there's, as you've very well shown, there are lots of pieces that work in other industries that are very applicable and can be adapted to a law firm very successfully. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say, and one of the unique perspectives I've brought to all of this is I spent 17 years in a traditional firm. Mm-hmm. I know what doesn't work. I know what burned me out. I have this term I use called the politics of being. And I think that all of the listeners are going to know what I mean when I say this. Those people who won't do something because that's not my job. Or I'm a paralegal and that's a secretarial role. The politics of being. And I think when we're talking about working with a group of people, we need to be aware how heavily that kind of mental attitude can play on our cultures. And so having seen all that for 17 years, being able to be a little intentional about how we were going to address those things, mm-hmm. and having nobody stop me was really, and I do recognize that I was blessed by that. Mm-hmm. Other times not so blessed. When you get your capital call, I'm the only one doing capital call, but nevertheless, you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Another question for you, I know you mentioned Brene Brown and Dare to Lead. Mm-hmm. In terms of people management, like hiring and people management, I know you have this like tightly knit core team that you work with. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned or approaches that you've really incorporated into the way that you manage your attorneys and support staff?
I'm going to talk about two things. One is I learned the hard way. You can't hire based on how well someone looks on paper. Mm. Because I like to think of it as skills can be taught. Values are just values. And if someone's not already collaborative, if someone's already not working from a place of integrity, if someone's already not client first, that's one of our values. If someone's not already in that mindset, that's much more difficult to teach than a skill. So my first thing is learning to apply values when I hire, to quit making it about, hey, they were editor of the law review. I mean, that's really great, but what if they have a value system that just doesn't match yours? So anyway, that was one. The second, I would say, is really focused on my role as leader. My role as leader is not to tell everybody else what to do. My role is to encourage them, to help them grow, to give them room to be all that they can be. And I think with having that mindset, I don't run into people problems like I might if I were trying to tell everybody what to do all the time.
Mhm.
So when I'm hiring for values, I'm also really thinking and concentrating on what potential do I see here? Is there potential to grow? Is this someone who I can see if I get hit by a bus tomorrow can lead this firm? Would I want them to lead this firm?
Mhm.
And anyway, I think those are just mindset shifts in the way we hire. But at the end of the day, it means that I'm building for a culture of people, and culture is a way overused term, but I'm using it in a different way, in that it's the bedrock, it's the foundation of your business, is the culture that you've created. And so you need to be intentional about it. And why can I run lean? I can run lean because I'm focused on those things rather than just another body.
Right, absolutely. And because, at a Hire and Esquire, our core function is to help uh law firms hire. I am curious to know, when you focus on, just from a logistical standpoint, when you focus on values-based hiring instead of overly concerned about skills, um, do you find that you're able to find people who are a better fit for your organization? How flexible do you think you can be on skills to sort of prioritize values? Because I think I see
Yeah.
that struggle a lot of times for partners who are hiring, and everyone wants someone who can hit the ground running, right? That's what everybody wants all the time. But then the long-term impact of that is not always good if, to your point, you're not hiring someone who fits in from a value standpoint. So how have you sort of struck a balance between those two requirements?
The And you're right, it's hard. I have hired wrong before. And what I've learned is if I'm only hiring for someone to hit the ground running, they already have their own way of doing something. We have a very structured, defined way of doing something. If their value system does not, they're not open-minded enough to grow and learn, then I don't care if they can hit the ground running, because they're going to have a not necessarily a negative impact, but it's going to slow things down, whether you think it might or not. And does hiring with values, does it take longer? I would say yes, it does
Yeah.
take a little longer. However, it may take longer, but in the long run, I'm not onboarding someone that might not be a good fit. I might find out in 3 months they're a bad fit. What do you do with someone who's been in for 3 months? You might keep them because, hey, I've already invested this time in them.
Yeah.
But you have to think, and I know we all know the saying, one bad apple can ruin the whole bunch.
Right.
One bad employee will ruin the whole bunch. And then what you get is what I call a default culture. That default culture is what happens when things start to get toxic and you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And as it gets toxic, this bad apple starts to really spread the rot in the team.
Yeah.
Everything you've worked so hard for starts to diminish. So if I'd taken an extra month to hire, I'm not going to have that same impact. Do you
Yeah.
follow what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
that's great. Switching gears a little bit, I wanted to ask a little bit about technology and how you're engaging with that to grow your firm. Obviously, you know, different firm models depending on whether they do billable hour, contingency, or how they work, are relying on more and more different technology solutions to help them be more efficient. I'm just curious if where you see yourself fitting into the curve of adoption, and what you've thought's been helpful and what you think is not.
Okay. I would say that we have been pretty ahead of the curve.
Hmm.
When I started my firm 11 years ago, we immediately took to case management software.
Hmm.
And to my surprise, there are still law firms that are running analog. They're running all their cases on paper. And that's surprising to me that they're still doing that. And the thing that I think a lot with regard to that is now we've got AI. In November of 2022, what comes out is AI. And those firms who never adapted to case management software are now having to compete with those firms who've already taken the ball and are running with AI. Um, we have AI actually integrated into our case management system. So, I've done insurance bad faith my career, and those are very document intense cases. I can remember back in the day, I know it's my trudging through the snow and barefooted story, but I can remember back in the day, we would get bankers boxes filled tight with paper, and there would be 11, 12, 13, 20 bankers boxes. And the time it took to sort through that, not just sorting through it, I mean, I had to organize it, I had to understand what was in it, and it was in a mass of documents. Now I can take that same mass of documents, they're all digital now, put it into AI and say, I want every document by Bates number that mentions John Ford's name.
Yeah.
And like that, I've got it. It's just, I think that AI is going to change the game in a lot of ways, but I don't think AI will ever replace the lawyer. But I do believe the lawyers who embrace AI are going to replace everyone else. We've got to embrace it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've heard that a lot, and I think there is still a lot of anxiety around accuracy and things like that, which I think are well founded.
Me
But
too. Me
yeah,
too. Even what I'm just describing to you, find me every document that has John Ford's name on it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to read every document. I'm still going to read every document there.
right,
But
right.
that organization piece, that would take weeks,
Yes.
truly weeks, just to read everything and organize it. I don't have that problem anymore. And I will say, that wasn't something I could even have a paralegal or a legal assistant do because they didn't know what I knew. And so, AI, I don't think it's going to replace those people either. I think we've got to learn to use it that way. I like to think of it, kind of, does it make mistakes? Absolutely. Don't use it for your legal, to come up with cases because it's
Right.
going to come up with cases.
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
same thing, if you're looking at 300 pages of medical records, it can help you organize them. You're still going to have to read it because it's not perfect. I don't think it will ever be perfect. But think of it if you had a legal assistant doing the same thing. Are you going to blindly pay attention to what they do or are you going to read it?
Right.
Same
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. That's what I've heard from the people who I think are using it the most efficiently is almost thinking of it as a another employee of the firm,
Yes.
right? Who has a very unique skill set that is helpful, right? But still requires the
Yeah.
same amount of, double checking that you would provide
Right.
for any person on your team. Or
Yeah.
questioning, analysis, any of that, right? Yeah, I think that's great.
And I've always done heavy litigation, so there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of big picture and tiny little detail thinking and all of that, which is why I would have always read everything anyway. One thing I would add, part of the reason I can run lean is because of using technology.
Yeah.
We have more lawyers than we do support staff. And that kind of tells you what AI can do for you. I'm all about the people. I was again fortunate because these tools were out there before I started. So it's not like I have a bunch of legal assistants and paralegals that need to be worried about losing their job. I know that some law firm owners are going to have that challenge. And all I can say is teach them to do it. Because it's
Yes,
still going to need human beings. Use their skill set to learn it. Use their skill set to become valuable to you in a different way.
absolutely. That's great. What one other question that I have for you, and then anything else that you want to add at all? If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice before you started your firm that you think would have been saved you time and frustration and headaches, what would that be?
I knew you were going to ask it, and so I had to think about it for a minute. And I think that the advice I would give to Simone 11 years ago is don't measure your success by your results. Measure your success in inches, because progress is really what this is all about. You know, I was very focused on, oh, is this settlement going to be as much as it could have been if I were in that other firm? Or is, you know, all that comparison and thinking things had to happen faster than they were going to happen. The truth is, real change and real progress happens in inches. And to learn to sit with that, to learn to accept that as it is. And I mean, that may be kind of a Buddhist concept, but I think it's a real, for me, I think, you know, say my age, 47-year-old Simone would have really done well had she known that, you know.
Absolutely. And I know we talked about authors before, but I don't know if you've ever read Atomic Habits, but that that was incredibly, that made a big impact on me as well, because I think I used to be very, very focused on only end results, and you realize you can go really far when you focus on incremental change, actually much farther, much faster when you focus on incremental change.
It ends up being that way. I mean, if you're thinking, you know, I want a $5 million law firm in 3 years, you know, that, unless you've already got the systems in place to get you there.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it's not going to happen in 3 years. It is going to take time, and it's okay. That's what I mean. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, are you making progress? And that's the key. And making the right progress.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, great. Anything I didn't ask or bring up that you think we should talk about? I know that you have a book coming out next spring, which I'm very excited to read, and I'm hoping maybe we could talk again when that happens.
Yes.
I don't want you to spoil it. But yeah, if there's anything else that we didn't go over that you'd like to bring up, the floor is yours.
Well, I would just say it's a pleasure visiting with you. You were lovely. I would love to come back and really get into the details of the framework that I'm teaching. Yes. The book is called The Setup. The Setup is the name of the framework that we've created here. And just a teaser, it's basically everything you need to know about running a law firm in one of 5 pillars. And they're people, pipeline, process, product, and profitability. Anyway, I would love to talk about that with you.
I would too. I would love to, when it comes out, I would love to read it, and then it would be great if we could talk about it and get a little bit deeper into it, but very excited to read it when it comes out. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's really exciting to hear how you're thinking about things, and I think I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, because I do think it'll be very helpful to others who are running, you know, small and medium-sized law firms and trying to figure out the business side of running their law firm. So thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Of course. Thank you.